No one teaches you what to do with the rage, not real rage, the kind that coils in your gut and waits, the kind that sharpens your breath when you're humiliated, when you're overlooked, when you're broken and expected to smile. They tell you to be calm, to breathe, to talk it out. But deep down, you know it. There's a fire in you that doesn't want to talk. It wants to move mountains. And maybe that fire was never your flaw. Maybe it was your calling. You were told anger makes you dangerous, that it needs to be managed, sedated, silenced. But what if that's wrong? What if anger, when rightly understood, is the compass that points to your buried strength? The Stoics never taught suppression. They taught transformation. They believed a man is never more powerful than when he stands before his own chaos and does not flinch. Most men either explode or collapse. They've never learned the third option, to stand still while the fire burns through them, unmoving, but not unfeeling. The strong man doesn't pretend he isn't angry. He just never lets it own him. He holds it, studies it, then bends it toward action. That's where we're going in this video. You'll see that anger isn't the enemy. Aimless anger is. Suppressed anger is. Rage that has no clarity, no shape, no direction. That's what destroys. But the right kind of man learns to give his fire form. And when he does, the world stops fearing his rage and starts respecting his presence. You'll learn how to catch the spark before it turns into wildfire, how to purify the fuel that feeds your mind, how to train stillness until it becomes your sharpest blade, and how to redirect your emotions into action while others burn their lives down trying to be heard. You'll see how ego often wears the mask of righteous anger, how what you thought was strength was just pride in a louder voice, and how true power doesn't need to shout. It simply builds. Because the strongest men don't move to prove anything. They move because they've decided who they are. They don't throw punches. They build legacies. They don't shout. They execute. And when the time comes, they don't need to raise their voices, because the world has already learned to listen when they speak. By the end of this journey, your anger won't be the same. It will have shape, direction, depth. You'll no longer fear what you feel. You'll use it. You'll control it. You'll become something this world rarely sees, a man who walks with fire under his skin and discipline in his eyes. There is a contract you were never shown, but you were trained to obey it. It starts early, almost invisibly. The moment you are told to calm down instead of being understood. The moment your intensity is labeled a problem, your anger something to fix, your fire something to tone down so others feel comfortable around you. Over time, you learn the rules without anyone saying them out loud. Be agreeable, be harmless, be controlled in a way that serves the room, not your nature. This contract does not turn boys into men. It turns men into something softer, quieter, easier to manage. It teaches you that anger is a defect, not a signal. That strength must always apologize for itself. That power, unless domesticated, is dangerous. And so you begin to cut pieces of yourself away. Not because you are weak, but because you want to belong. You trade your edge for approval, your instinct for acceptance, your fire for silence. What follows is not peace. It is confusion, because anger does not disappear when ignored. It goes underground. It leaks into your decisions, your relationships, your self-respect. It shows up as resentment, as sarcasm, as a quiet bitterness you cannot explain. You start reacting to the world in ways that feel beneath you, and you don't know why. You think something is wrong with you, when in truth something essential was never taught. The Stoics understood this clearly. They did not fear anger. They feared being ruled by it. There is a difference. A man stripped of his fire is not virtuous. He is numb. Virtue requires force. Discipline requires energy. Even calm requires strength. You cannot master what you have been trained to hate. You cannot lead what you refuse to acknowledge. Society prefers men who are predictable, men who absorb frustration quietly. men who confuse passivity with wisdom. But history was never shaped by men who made themselves smaller to fit the moment. It was shaped by men who learned when to restrain themselves and when to move without asking permission from the crowd. Men who knew their anger was not there to destroy, but to signal that something mattered deeply. The hidden contract teaches you to fear that signal, to mute it before it speaks, and once muted, you begin to drift. You lose the internal pressure that forges direction. Life becomes tolerable, but never sharp, safe, but never meaningful. You are calm, but not grounded, controlled, but not powerful. Breaking this contract does not mean lashing out. It means reclaiming what was taken quietly. It means realizing that your anger is not proof of immaturity, but evidence of standards, of boundaries, of values that refuse to stay silent. Strong men do not erase this part of themselves. They refine it. They stop apologizing for the fire and start asking what it is trying to shape. Once you see the contract, you cannot unsee it. And once you refuse it, something changes. The fire does not disappear. It steadies. It waits. And in that waiting, it becomes available for something higher, something deliberate, something that no longer reacts blindly but prepares to act with precision. You weren't born calm. You were taught to be. You were taught that raising your voice made you a threat, that wanting justice made you unstable, that standing your ground made you difficult. From the first time your fists clenched, someone told you to unclench them, to behave, to be nice, to sit down. And you did, because you wanted approval, because no one told you that anger has a place, that fire isn't always destruction. Sometimes it's warning, sometimes it's wisdom. As a boy, you weren't allowed to test your limits. You were told to fear them. You weren't guided into your power. You were medicated out of it. Your fire was never sharpened, just smothered. And you began to believe the lie that to be strong meant to be soft, agreeable, digestible. The world didn't want you dangerous. It wanted you domesticated. What they called maturity was really submission. What they praised as politeness was your silence. And what they feared most wasn't your violence. It was your awareness. So you grew up ashamed of your intensity. You learned to smile when you were boiling. You nodded through disrespect. You apologized for having a backbone. And every time you swallowed that lump in your throat, every time you stayed silent when something inside screamed, you made another quiet agreement, a hidden contract, one that said, if I stay small, I'll be safe. If I don't challenge, I won't be punished. If I hide my fire, they'll let me belong. But here's the truth no one gave you. The world doesn't respect men who stay hidden. It uses them. It drains them. It promotes their obedience, then forgets them. Because deep down, the world doesn't need more agreeable men. It needs men who are awake, grounded, discerning, men who know what they feel and why, men who aren't ashamed of their inner storm, but who've made peace with it. The strong man doesn't erupt, but he doesn't vanish either. He holds his line, and that terrifies people. You were told that anger makes you weak, but it's not anger that breaks men. It's the fear of it. It's what happens when you try to cut it out instead of learning how to wield it. When you deny your edge, you don't become peaceful. You become passive. You become a man whose hands shake when they should be still. A man who whispers when he should speak. A man who says yes when everything inside is begging him to say no. You were not made for politeness. You were made for precision, for presence, for fire that builds instead of burns. And that doesn't come from suppressing what you feel. It comes from seeing it clearly, from standing in the flame without flinching. You were not born to be harmless. You were born to be whole. Anger is part of that wholeness. It is not your enemy. It's your signal, your boundary, your pulse. And when it's respected, it becomes your power. The hidden contract ends when you stop apologizing for your strength, when you stop confusing numbness for peace, when you stop handing out pieces of yourself just to be accepted. The strong man doesn't need to be accepted. He accepts himself, and from that place, he chooses his words. He chooses his actions. He chooses what gets his energy, and what no longer does. You don't need permission to reclaim your fire. You need clarity. You need the discipline to feel what's real and discard what was forced. Every moment you stayed quiet when you should have spoken wasn't weakness. It was conditioning. It was the contract still echoing in your bones. But that contract only has power if you keep signing it. Every time you choose to stay small, you reinforce the lie that your power is dangerous. But it's not. It's sacred. It's rare. It's the only thing that can protect what matters most to you. And the moment you see that, truly see it, you stop living to be liked, and you start living to be aligned with your values, with your breath, with your own command. There's a moment most men never notice, a moment so small it gets lost in the rush of reaction. But that moment decides everything. The words you say, the damage you cause, the respect you gain or lose. It's the spark, that first flicker of heat in your chest. That split second where anger announces itself, not with rage, but with a shift in your breath, a tightening of your jaw, a sudden clarity that you're being tested. Most men never recognize it. They're already reacting before they even know they're angry, and that's why they stay weak. Because they miss the doorway to power. You can't control what you don't see. And anger, like fire, always gives a warning. There is always a signal before the burn. The strong man trains himself to detect it, not to run from it, not to smother it, but to face it without blinking. That's the difference. Weak men deny the spark until it erupts. Strong men greet it. They observe it. They step back, not to retreat, but to choose. Because in that moment, before the voice raises, before the fist tightens, before the damage is done, there is power. Not to dominate others, but to govern yourself. That's what separates strength from force. Anyone can explode. It takes no discipline to react, but to pause without suppressing, to feel without being ruled. That's mastery. That's presence. That's the kind of power that makes people lean in when you speak. Not because you're loud, but because they know you could be, and chose not to. The spark is not a threat. It's a signal. It's your mind telling you that a line was crossed, that something needs attention. Most ignore it or fear it. But the strong man uses it like a compass. He asks, what is this anger pointing to? Is it fear? Is it betrayal? Is it truth? He doesn't run from it. He investigates. He turns that flicker into focus. And in doing so, he gains an edge that the reactive man will never understand. Because anger doesn't begin as rage. It begins as tension, as heat, as a subtle shift in your awareness. And if you can catch it there, you're no longer a slave to it. You're a sculptor. You shape it into direction, into action, into silence if needed, or into a word so sharp it cuts through noise without raising a single octave. That's real strength. Not in pretending you don't feel, but in never letting what you feel dictate who you become. To master the spark, you must slow down. Not your reaction time, but your internal attention. You must become a watcher of your own impulses, not to judge them, but to understand them. That spark is where the old you ends and the disciplined you begins. It's where instinct meets intention. And in that space, every future version of you is being decided. You've spent years reacting without thinking, blaming others, calling it passion, calling it being real. But there's nothing real about being ruled. That's not passion. That's programming. You've never been taught how to hold the spark without burning your life down. But now you know. Now you've seen the power of that moment. And you don't need to be perfect. You just need to notice. Because the man who can sit with his anger without feeding it The man who can feel the heat rising and still choose his next word with precision, that man becomes untouchable. He's not a bomb, he's a blade. And when he finally moves, it's not from emotion, it's from clarity. That kind of man doesn't shout to be heard. He speaks when it matters. And when he does, the room goes quiet. Catch the spark, not to kill it, but to shape it. That's the moment where power begins. Not when the world provokes you, but when you refuse to become what they expect. Not louder, not crueler, just clearer. That's what makes you strong, not the fire, but the stillness around it. Anger doesn't appear out of nowhere. It builds quietly, not just from what people do to you, but from what you consume when no one's watching. Every scroll, every conversation, every voice you let inside feeds your fire or poisons it. Most men don't realize they're not just reacting to the present moment, they're reacting to a backlog, a pile of unprocessed noise, resentment, comparison, weakness disguised as humor, distraction disguised as information. And when the spark comes, all of it ignites at once. That's not clarity, that's combustion. The man who explodes easily isn't just angry, he's saturated. He's filled himself with low fuel, petty thoughts, artificial pressure, the opinions of cowards, the lies of influencers who mistake performance for power. He wakes up to stimulation, not stillness. He eats words with no weight. He hears conflict before he hears himself. And so when someone challenges him, he's already at the edge. It's not what was said. It's everything he never questioned. The moment just pulls the trigger on a loaded mind. Strong men are selective, not just with people, but with input. They know their mind is a furnace. What goes in shapes what comes out. They don't binge outrage and expect peace. They don't feed envy and expect purpose. They choose stillness over noise, books over gossip, reflection over headlines. They don't need to be updated, they need to be rooted. And from that clarity, their anger becomes sharp, not loud, not impulsive, but precise, controlled, strategic. The mind has no neutral. Every word you hear is building something. Every voice you trust is laying brick or tearing it down. And most men are building houses on garbage, then wondering why everything smells like fire when they walk in. You don't rise in moments of pressure by accident. You rise because your fuel was clean, because your thoughts were filtered, because you guarded the gates of your mind like something sacred. And when the test came, you had the reserves to respond, not react. There's a difference between having fire and being flammable. One is contained, directed, useful. The other is dangerous to everything it touches. Weak men surround themselves with sparks and blame the world when they burn. Strong men build distance between noise and decision, between impulse and action. That space is created by what you feed your awareness. It's 1,000 small choices, unseen by the world, that shape whether you collapse in rage or command it in silence. This isn't about avoiding pain or living in a cave. This is about discernment, about having the courage to ask, who benefits from me being angry all the time? Who profits when I'm distracted, reactive, inflamed? And who loses when I learn to think clearly, speak slowly, and act from depth? The man who masters his input masters his output. Not just what he says, but how he feels, how he breathes, how he leads. You are not weak because you feel anger. You are weakened when you feed it confusion. When you pollute your thoughts and expect them to give you peace. Clean your fuel, strip away the garbage, sit with your own breath until you hear your own voice again. Then when the world throws chaos at you, you won't combust. You'll see. You'll choose. You'll move, not to prove, but to preserve. That's the difference. Fire doesn't scare the strong, but they respect what feeds it. Because they've learned this. The man who guards his mind doesn't just avoid destruction. He becomes impossible to provoke. And when he finally acts, it's not a reaction. It's a decision. Measured, silent, final. You think strength is loud? You think it hits hard, moves fast, crushes everything in its way? That's what the world taught you. Strength as aggression. Strength as intensity. But the strongest men don't move like that. They move with stillness. Not because they lack power, but because they've mastered it. Stillness is not absence. It's containment. It's what happens when a man can sit inside the fire and not be burned. When he can feel the full weight of his emotion and still not act until it's time. The modern world hates stillness. It calls it laziness. It sees silence and rushes to fill it. But strong men do the opposite. They slow down when others speed up. They retreat when others chase. They breathe when others shout. Because they've learned that stillness is a weapon. Not one that destroys, but one that preserves clarity. The calm man sees. The reactive man guesses. One makes history. The other repeats mistakes. Stillness is a kind of pressure. It's where all your demons rise to the surface. Every wound you've ignored. Every insecurity you've masked with anger. It all comes up when you finally stop running. And most men can't handle that. They need noise. They need movement. They call it drive, but it's just escape. They're lifting weights with broken minds. Training bodies while ignoring the battlefield inside their own thoughts. And they wonder why their strength feels hollow when life gets real. Real strength is internal. It's forged in the gym of the soul. It's built in the moments when you want to react, and you don't. When your ego screams for retaliation, but you stay centered. When life provokes you, and you turn that energy inward, not to suppress it, but to refine it. That's the training no one sees. That's the rep most men skip. And it's the only one that matters when everything else fails. Stillness doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing the right thing with absolute focus. It means moving from center, not from chaos. It means not being pulled by every emotion, every insult, every fire that others light to drag you into their confusion. The man who's trained in stillness doesn't flinch when disrespected. He doesn't need to prove he's strong. His strength is proven in his ability to hold his ground without shouting, to stand present while others lose themselves. Think about it. The moments you regret most didn't come from stillness. They came from reaction, from heat, from acting without thought, without pause, without clarity. But every moment you remember with pride, restraint, calm, precision came from stillness. That moment between the trigger and the response. That second when you chose not to be a slave to what you felt, but a master of what you did. That's not weakness, that's discipline, and it's rare. Stillness is where the work happens. The deep work, the kind that rewires you, that teaches you how to hold anger like a sword instead of swinging it like a club, that shows you how to breathe through betrayal, how to walk through chaos without absorbing it. It's where the man you were meets the man you're becoming, not through words, not through noise, but through quiet, brutal honesty. This is where strength lives now, not in domination, not in performance, but in the ability to sit in discomfort without escaping, to feel pain without reacting, to observe your own thoughts without believing every one of them. The world doesn't need more men who react fast. It needs men who respond slow, who see clearly, who act with weight, who carry fire but never drop it. Stillness is not the end of movement. It's the beginning of right movement. It's where your power consolidates, where your next action is born, not out of pressure, but out of purpose. So sit with your fire, let it burn, let it reveal, let it teach. And when you rise, don't rush, don't shout. Move like a man who's already won the war inside. Not all anger is strength, not every fire is clean, and not every man who appears powerful is truly in control. Some of the loudest voices, the harshest critics, the most aggressive postures are masks. Camouflage for fear, armor for insecurity. Rage often wears the costume of righteousness. But if you look closely, you'll see something else beneath it. Fragility, wounded pride, unhealed stories, a man yelling not because he's strong, but because he's scared. Ego loves to dress itself in noble causes. It says, I'm standing up for justice. I'm protecting what's mine. I'm fighting for truth. But if you strip away the noise, the adrenaline, the excuses, you'll often find something smaller. A need to be seen, a fear of being disrespected, a refusal to admit hurt. Most anger in men is not about others. It's about the self. It's about shame that never found words, pain that was never processed, doubt that was never resolved. Weakness doesn't always look like collapse. Sometimes it looks like control issues, like domination, like overcorrection. When a man hasn't done the inner work, he overcompensates. He turns his volume up to silence the voice inside that keeps asking, "Am I enough?" The enemy within isn't always a coward hiding in the corner. Sometimes it's the part of you that's convinced you must win every battle, prove every point, defend every wound as if it were truth. That's not power. That's panic in a sharper suit. Real strength is quiet. It doesn't need justification. It doesn't argue with fools or chase validation. The strong man doesn't respond to every provocation, not because he's indifferent, but because he knows what's his to carry and what isn't. That discernment only comes when you face the part of you that gets loud when it's insecure, that needs to be right, because it doesn't know how to be whole. Your greatest threat is not the man who insults you. It's the voice inside you that still believes you have something to prove. That's what makes you reactive. That's what turns small moments into explosions. Until you look that voice in the eye and say, "I no longer need you to keep me safe," you will always be at war with yourself. And every argument will feel like survival. Every challenge will feel like an attack. Every mistake will feel like a collapse. You were not made to carry that much fragility. You were made to become solid. But you can't do that until you confront the parts of you that are using anger to hide from truth. Ask yourself, what am I really defending? Is this rage about what happened or about what it made me feel? Most of your fury isn't about the world. It's about the reflection it shows you. That's why the same triggers keep repeating. They're not random. They're messengers. And they'll keep returning until you listen. The man who cannot face his own ego will forever be a slave to it. He'll call it strength. He'll call it principle. But he'll live on edge, always ready to explode, always afraid to be seen. But the man who dares to turn inward, to sit with the uncomfortable truth that not every anger is noble, begins to walk differently. He no longer uses rage as a shield. He lets clarity lead. That's not weakness. That's power without noise, control without effort. And it's rare, because it demands honesty, and honesty hurts before it heals. But it's the only way to truly separate your anger from your wounds, to let fire serve you instead of rule you. When you finally silence the ego, you stop mistaking fury for strength. You stop burning people just to feel your own heat. You begin to act, not to protect your pride, but to protect your peace. And that shift changes everything. The enemy within loses its grip, and you begin to lead your life not from fear, but from presence. The world trains you to react. It rewards quick tempers, hot takes, fast punches. It wants your energy scattered, your focus hijacked, your attention broken by everything that offends you. And while men waste their fire on proving who's right, the strong one is quiet, somewhere out of sight, building. Because he's learned the truth. Anger is energy, and energy is currency. You can spend it proving yourself to strangers, or you can redirect it toward the life they'll never touch. Not all fire is meant to burn bridges. Some is meant to forge foundations. Redirection isn't weakness. It's power under command. It's when a man refuses to give his time to battles that end in nothing. Instead of debating online, he builds skills. Instead of seeking revenge, he sharpens his vision. Instead of feeding conflict, he feeds structure, craft, precision. The world sees his stillness as surrender, but it's not. It's strategy. The man who redirects doesn't give up the fight. He just changes the battlefield. To redirect anger is to step out of emotional slavery. It's to refuse to let others dictate how your day feels, how your future unfolds. And this isn't about being passive. It's about choosing battles that matter. The disciplined man doesn't shout. He studies. He doesn't chase. He constructs. While others crumble under the weight of petty offenses, he's stacking bricks, cold, focused, detached from drama, fully immersed in motion. There is nothing louder than a man who builds in silence. His results scream where his words never needed to. That's the essence of redirection. It's not about suppression, it's about elevation. It's knowing your anger is too sacred to waste on fools, too valuable to throw at noise. It becomes fuel for movement, not meltdown. Direction replaces reaction. Structure replaces chaos. Purpose replaces pride. You can't redirect what you haven't first acknowledged. So the strong man doesn't pretend he isn't angry. He knows exactly when the heat rises. But instead of lashing out, he breathes deeper. He shifts. He pulls it inward and asks, where is this energy most needed right now? What can I build with it? What would happen if I used this storm not to scream louder, but to work longer? That mindset changes everything. It rewires you from defender to creator. It teaches you that real justice isn't in tearing someone down. It's in becoming someone so sharp, so whole, so dialed in that nothing small can reach you anymore. And it's not about ego. It's about results. Let others waste their fire. You'll spend yours like a tactician. Every drop turned into movement, into systems, into projects, into peace. Redirection also brings something rare in men: patience, not the kind that waits in silence while boiling inside, but the kind that knows that building is the ultimate revenge, that creating is the loudest response, that success is the final word. No tweet, no argument, no insult can outlast a man who quietly builds what he believes in. Because he doesn't need to win debates. He's too busy creating outcomes. You don't owe anyone your fire. You don't need to burn for the world to feel you. You don't need to explode to prove you're awake. All you need is the discipline to take what once broke you and use it to build what no one saw coming. That's redirection. And it's not for the weak. It's for the man who's done wasting himself, who's done bleeding for noise, who's ready to rise, not react. When others burn with ego, burn with purpose. When others collapse into chaos, create something unshakable. Turn every insult into brick, every betrayal into blueprint, every ounce of anger into action that silences every doubt you ever had. Because the world doesn't need more men proving themselves. It needs more men building quietly and letting the results speak. The purpose of strength is not to dominate, but to define what remains when you're gone. A man's legacy isn't built in moments of peace. It's shaped in how he responds to the fires of life. Not the ones he starts, but the ones he endures, transforms, and ultimately commands. Weak men burn everything down and leave only ashes behind. Strong men carry the fire through the storm and light the path for others when the sky is darkest. That's legacy. Not noise, not ego, not trophies, but impact that survives you. Your anger isn't just about you. It never was. It affects the way you lead, the way you love, the way you raise your children, the way you respond to betrayal, to injustice, to failure. And in those moments, something permanent is always being written. Every outburst writes a line. Every decision to redirect your rage writes another. The world doesn't remember what you felt. It remembers what you built in the presence of that feeling. That's what echoes, not your emotions, your choices. There are men who left empires behind. Not just in politics or war, but in how they carried themselves. Marcus Aurelius led a crumbling world and never used his anger to crush those beneath him. He used it to reinforce his responsibility, to protect order, to master himself. His fire didn't consume him, it sculpted him. That's legacy. When your name is remembered not for how you lashed out, but for how you held the line when everything dared you to lose it. But most men never think beyond the moment. They believe legacy is something that comes later, after success, after status, after others finally see their worth. But that's a lie. Legacy is now. It's how you show up when no one's watching. It's how you handle disrespect without becoming disrespectful. It's how you confront chaos without dragging others into it. It's how you discipline your emotions so that the next generation doesn't inherit your damage, only your strength. The strongest men are not remembered for their perfection. They're remembered for what they overcame without turning bitter, for how they used their pain to build instead of blame, for how they chose clarity when confusion was easier, for how they created stillness inside themselves, even when the world around them begged for reaction. That's not just personal mastery. That's the beginning of legacy. Your fire will leave a mark. The only question is what kind. Will it scorch everything around you, leaving others afraid of your temper? Or will it forge something so solid within you that others feel safer, sharper, calmer in your presence? A man's presence is his message. When your anger is under command, your presence says more than your words ever could. It says, I am not here to destroy, I am here to define. What you're building with your fire matters. Every boundary you enforce with calm. Every decision you make from strength, not spite. Every time you choose discipline over chaos. It all builds something, even if no one sees it yet. Because the work done in silence doesn't go unnoticed. It becomes character. And character is legacy on a microscopic level. When repeated long enough, it becomes history. Not just yours, but everyone shaped by your presence. There will come a time when you won't be here. But the way you handled your fire will remain. In the people you loved, in the enemies you didn't become, in the structures you left behind, in the silence you kept when rage would have been easier, in the voice of a son who repeats your restraint, in the strength of a daughter who learned what real power looks like. That is your legacy, not the fire, but how you held it. There's a kind of fire that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't flash. It doesn't roar. It doesn't demand to be seen. But when it enters a room, the air changes. That fire lives in the men who've mastered themselves so deeply, they no longer need to prove anything. Not because they've stopped feeling, but because they've learned to contain their storm without letting it leak. This is the quiet inferno, the final form of strength. Not expression, but embodiment. The strongest men do not speak often, but when they do, they don't raise their voices. They don't need to. Their presence carries weight, not from fear, not from force, but from a deep, undeniable command over themselves. You can feel it. It's in the way they look before they speak, the way they breathe before they respond, the way they make others lower their volume without saying a word. Because real strength isn't heard, it's sensed. These men have burned before. They've lashed out. They've made the same mistakes everyone makes, reacted, shouted, shattered things that couldn't be rebuilt. But they learned. They sat in the wreckage long enough to ask what that fire really cost. And in that silence, they saw what most never do. That control isn't about suppression, it's about channeling. And peace isn't the absence of heat. It's knowing exactly what to do with it when it rises. The quiet inferno is not cold, it's disciplined. Every time it wants to erupt, it remembers the aftermath. Every time it's disrespected, it filters the impulse through principle. It moves slowly, but with force. It doesn't argue, it acts. And that action, born from depth, is 10 times more powerful than the loudest man in the room. Because it doesn't come from ego, it comes from alignment. Most men are addicted to noise, to proving they're right, to being the most intense, the most passionate, the most aggressive. But that performance is empty. It feeds pride, not presence. And presence is what people remember, not what you shouted, but how you held yourself when it mattered. The man with the quiet inferno is remembered long after others are forgotten, not because he demanded attention, but because he earned it without trying. This isn't about being passive. It's about being unshakable. It's about knowing that the world doesn't need more reaction. It needs clarity, groundedness, a steady hand when things fall apart. When everyone else is yelling, the strongest man listens. When they escalate, he slows down. When they crumble, he's still standing. Not out of luck, but out of discipline. Because he learned that shouting is easy. Stillness is earned. When your fire has been refined, it stops leaking through your voice. It starts radiating from your being. You walk differently. You choose differently. People trust you, not because you say the right thing, but because you've become the kind of man who no longer needs to defend his strength. You carry it. You own it. And the world feels it before you speak. This is the legacy of a man who's mastered his anger. A man whose silence carries weight. A man who could destroy, but doesn't. Who could shout, but won't. Not because he's afraid, but because he no longer needs to raise his voice to be heard. His fire lives in how he lives. And that's the final proof of power, not expression. Integration. Now you've seen what happens when fire meets clarity, when emotion meets structure, when chaos meets a man who does not flinch. You've walked through the contract, the spark, the fuel, the discipline, the enemy, the redirection, and the legacy. And now you arrive here, not at the end, but at the beginning of who you must become. A man with fire under his skin and stillness in his voice. If something in this journey spoke to your inner fire, carry it forward. Let your next step be quiet, but deliberate. And if you're building that fire too, subscribe and leave in the comments what part lit something in you.